Close meeting of the select board to order on January 7th at 4 o'clock. Any additions and deletions to the agenda?
Yeah, we're going to take off the boiler purchase for the DPW garage. Chris Barr is out today and he hasn't been able to get a quote yet. But as the board's aware, last week when the boiler failed in the town garage, it was due for replacement anyways, but really failed. So we're going through the process of trying to find the best option. We're working with Woodstock to see if we can get an energy efficient boiler. And hopefully we'll have enough.
Need two though, right?
One works. Yeah, so we just need a second one. So right now they're operating off one boiler. Typically we have two boilers that go off and on to kind of keep them from overuse. So right now they're just on one.
How old is that one boiler?
I don't know the other one. I can find out though.
20 years old. Both of them? They were put in when it was new. I think both should be replaced. Not that I like spending extra money. I don't either, but I would think I would have had it sick with your house. What would you do? You'd get it replaced.
Yeah.
That's me.
So that can be taken off the agenda.
Okay, citizens' comments?
John Spector, Woodstock. I've told some of you this story, but I want to just briefly repeat it. I apologize. In 1958, the new school was built. People started going to it. And we didn't put any money aside for its eventual replacement, believing apparently that we thought that our buildings and other capital assets would last until the end of time. If each person in Woodstock, there were about 3,000 people then, had put aside 1 penny per day, we would have had $52 million, which is roughly our share of the cost of the school is. And people would have been able to make whatever decisions they needed to make to put that money aside much more easily than they have now when some people have to move out of town because they can't pay. The point is that saving in tiny pieces over time is a much better way to pay for things because people, even if it is a little bit less expensive to do it that way, but mostly it prevents having kind of life-changing events like people are going to be faced with now. Because for 66 years, from 1958 till now, we didn't put any money aside for that building or frankly for almost any of our other assets. I'm not pointing fingers because I voted for the last 10 years that I've been a full-time resident. I voted to approve every single budget, none of which put aside, as far as I know, put aside any money for the high school or really much money for any of our assets. So I'm going to stop. Well, someone once told me that I'm going to stop supporting that. And I would, until we have a budget, which includes a small amount each year of capital investment on top of whatever we need and not putting that money into a fund. I think it should be 0.5% a year. So my suggestion would be whatever budget you decide is appropriate that we need this year, add 0.5% to that, grow the taxes by 0.5% more, put that money into a capital fund and do that for 5 years and don't touch that money until we really need it. Don't touch it for the first 5 years. And then after that, touch it when we need it. If we do that for 15 years, we'll have about $15 million. And it will be painful because raising taxes by 0.5% higher than whatever you're calculating is going to be the tax rate is going to hurt, but it will hurt less over the long run in the same way that a penny would have been manageable. That 0.5% will be more manageable than forcing people to move out of town 15 years from now. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizens' comments?
I see nothing online.
Okay. All right, so we're not going to talk about the boiler. Okay, budget.
Okay, we're back. Back talking about the budget. In front of you, you have another copy of the budget. There is 2 free copies up here, and we actually have 2 people in the audience. If you guys want to come up and grab one, I can. That's town and sewer, John.
Town and sewer sounds like a really lousy person.
What if we add water to it? Does that help?
Coming soon, water. And I want to, Roger Logan's in the audience. I want to thank him after his prodding us. We have a version of the budget up on the website for everyone to look at. We're working on separating to make it look a little more presentable. But if you go to our website under the About, under budget 26, you'll see a PDF version of the current budget for people to look at. There you see the town, village, and sewer, and the water as well. So you'll get a sense of what we're talking about. With all that said, last time the board met, they kind of threw out suggestions. It was my feeling that they're kind of more suggestions than votes on the board. So I haven't changed anything when it comes to expenses. Besides increasing the rent on Pentangle and the chamber as requested by the board, minimal amounts. So that's kind of where we're at. So we're still talking about an 11.2% tax increase with the budget in front of you. And so with that, I'll open up the floor to the board to discuss.
I think the other thing that was unanimous, and maybe my read was wrong on that, was reducing the assistant clerk's budget as well. That was Ray's idea, but I feel like we all talked about it as a positive thing. I don't know where we all stand on it now, but given the recording timesheets, is that right, Susan?
It's the recording fees and the vault time have decreased
The recording
fairly
fees.
significantly, which to me indicates that, we had a big need for staff during COVID when there was a lot of real estate transactions, but perhaps that has quieted and we don't need the level of staff we have now.
And was that $13,000 or 13?
Okay, we also discussed potentially raising the co-pays for the town employees from 7 to 9%. And I think that after the personnel policy we just signed here, more holidays, more sick and vacation days, $1,000 retention bonus. And I don't know when the last increase was, but I know it's never been since I've been here, so that's at least 6 years. So I'm suggesting we raise it from 7% to a 9% copay. The insurance that you sent out, if you take that average, it comes out to 9.3% of all those towns. And I have looked at other, when we were doing a personnel policy, I did look at many other personnel policies from other towns. And by far, our personnel policy is above most other towns that are on this list. The insurance.
I think it's hard to take something away from current employees. I would support maybe looking at this for new hires, but this would go, am I right? This would go into effect in July?
I have to look at it, either be July or January of next year, depending on how our insurance works, but I'll have to get the answer for you.
So I think the estimate was it would cost employees about $500.
Yeah, so if you're on a family plan, the average employee on a family plan with this insurance change would cost about $500 for the new fiscal year of added cost.
Insurance goes up in January though.
Then probably, well, yeah, but it goes up, just went up now on January 1st. So if this change is made in July, they'd have to pay the extra 2% at that point too. So we say around $500 for a family plan.
I think this is a tough one. I think that while I understand that we contribute more than the average town, I also think that like it's very likely that our salaries are not competitive with other towns, and I think about, I guess I'd rather see us next year not have bonuses, because I feel like it's a little bit it's a little bit hard to reconcile the fact that we gave out those bonuses this year and they're effectively not going to be effective if we're making them pay more for insurance next year rather. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think what you're saying is we gave them a bonus and we're taking, take it back from them by raising the insurance cost, yeah.
That means you have to change the personnel policy.
It would, no, the bonuses were not in the personnel policy. We took it out, so it wasn't a guarantee.
Greg, what do you think?
I think if it was taken away, I'd be unhappy. I think I agree with Susan, and maybe with new hires, maybe we drop it down. It's not gonna. Everything we've talked about, trying to save some money hasn't really amounted to much, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I think our employees, I can speak for myself, are hard to find. If you take something away, they'd be inclined to go somewhere else, I think. Guess that's my opinion.
I agree. I mean, candidly, I think all the cuts we're discussing are us trying to look like we're doing something when in fact they're pretty ineffectual.
Always has a comment.
Well, to be a limbo dancer to get here. I just want to say from a taxpayer standpoint, I appreciate you looking to save money anywhere. I do agree with those who say that we should not take something away. I also, as an old labor sympathizer, do not like two-tier systems where one group of people is paid with old benefits or under old rules, and a new group of people are coming in automatically disadvantaged against their peers. I don't think that's good practice, especially for such a small labor force as we have here. So I would, again, I appreciate you trying to save money anywhere. But I don't think this is a really good way to do it, in my opinion. I do have another statement and more generally about the budget. Do you want me to say that now, or are you still?
Yeah.
I think anything, e.g. the rec center, that has a consumer fee for service model should not get any kind of raise. They should raise their rates. If they can't go forward without raising the rates, I'm not talking, like, the library is obviously different. They don't have a fee for service model. But anything like a rec center that has a fee for service model for consumers, they should make up whatever they want to make up by raising the rates. Thanks.
And the rec is the only one that requested an increase, is that?
It was
Because of-
$2,000 over what we gave them last
And
year.
that's somewhat because of Vale Field expense.
Yeah, so for those who know, Vale Field's owned by the village, I believe. But the rec center maintains and uses it and keeps it up to date, and so the town allocates money towards that work.
And I just want to say to respond to that too, the rec did raise rates this year. They increased gym rates, day camp rates, apples and crafts fair fees, sports fees, and rents for all tenants except for the nursery school.
One more thing I'll say about the budget. If people want more budget talk, in 45 minutes is a joint meeting between the trustees and the select board, where they're talking about potentially changing the allocation for the endowment fund from 3% to 5%. If the board decides to do that, if both boards decide to do that, the town will see about $15,000 more in revenue, which will kind of decrease the tax rate by a quarter of a percentage point. So probably talking more like 10.5% 8% or something at that point, from where we are right now.
Anyone else got any comments for the budget?
I have two things. I know last budget meeting, I advocated for adding a director of planning. After some conversations, and some research today, I'm actually of the mind that, the planning director, I was conflating outcomes, and so I don't want to add a planning director to the budget. But something I'm looking into and investigating, and this is again, like not a fully baked idea, is an economic development director, which towns like Randolph have had, and it's a position that runs, as long as it's funded. And it's someone who courts developers and businesses and walks them through what it would be like to open in our town, as well as applies for grants. And so if we want something like an outcome of like the East End and have connections live when we can add live connections with the water, that is in my mind like a preferable outcome. And we can continue to rely on Two Rivers for the planning needs that we do have, which are intermittent. And I plan to bring this up at the joint meeting because I know that that proposal would impact the village. Having a planning director or not having a planning director would impact them. But that's kind of where my opinion has shifted. So I wanted to let people know about that. And that's something that, again, we can discuss, but it's not something that something I think we can fund outside the budget, either through the economic development and community fund or a grant funded position. So that's on that.
Did you say you had 2 points? I just
Oh,
want-
yeah, we talked at length last time about fireworks, and I don't know if anyone has had a chance to think about that, but it was something we talked about last time. I know we're like 6 months away, so I don't know how people feel about changing it this year. If that's enough time to find someone else to do it, or if we should plan to do it last year. I know Greg said that there would be a lot of upset folks around town.
Possibly.
I think one of the things I would like to do as an agenda item after, maybe before town meeting, but not related to this budget, is sit and really look at the budget and think about our goals
Yeah.
and eliminate for next year items that don't meet our budget, but in time maybe to give other organizations a chance to step forward and pay for the fireworks if we decide they don't meet our stated goals. But I think there's no big items in our budget that don't meet the goals, but I think there are some
Peripheral.
items.
Yeah. I think that's a great idea, Susan.
Could we commit to funding half the fireworks this year and state that this is the last year we'll contribute funding and start working with people to figure out another way to support that very
think Eric
fun
has
and
to
important
sign.
endeavor?
I think Eric has to sign the contract pretty soon, so if no one steps forward, we're kind of stuck paying for all of it anyway.
Holding bag. Mhm.
Yeah, and I mean, the work would fall on my office to find people to
Right.
fund that money, which again, in an ideal world where we had the free time, I would not be against that. It's just not a priority for my office, so
No, definitely not.
fortunately. But I think to everyone's point, if the select board decides to fund the fireworks this year, but decides that this is the last year, we should make that public and let organizations know ahead of time that they can maybe work with us this year to figure out how to put it on, and then next year take the lead on it or something like that. So.
How much is it again?
So we budgeted 14, so we've always under budgeted, so $14,000 kind of encompasses the cost of fireworks, the cost of music for the day, and then pay for the town constable to help with parking.
And it's always over that.
We used to fund, I think, $9,000, and we always came in over, so 14,000 would cover the whole cost.
14.
Yeah.
And again, I as I said before, I don't know how this became a town expense. It used to be a chamber run thing. They used to charge admission to go to the fireworks. There used to be a lot of activities there. I don't know when it became solely the town's responsibility.
I'm sorry, I apologize. Apologize. All right, I'm gonna, I'm sorry, I'll move the
Making it
chair.
as difficult to talk as
Yeah.
possible.
There's a huge decrease in local, in permits and fees. I assume, because I haven't been involved in the discussions, I assume you've talked about ways to increase permits and fees and you've settled that this is appropriate. It's not like a uncovered topic.
I think for this budget, right? But
So John, so the big difference there is in the past, we budgeted the local 1% money coming in. So that includes the $350,000.
Oh,
And because it's just a pass through, we took it out that year. We've taken it out.
so it's a math. Well, then the expense, you budgeted the revenue, but not the grants?
So in old budgets, we'd have it as an expense and a revenue,
Right, so you took the revenue out.
and the expense out.
You took, oh. Oh, okay, so the expenses are growing by, it looks like there's a very modest increase in expenses. But in fact, you took the expenses out.
Yeah, so it probably would have.
Did you take it out of the approved of the prior year?
I don't believe so, but I'll
Right.
confirm.
So just in terms of, this is now a communications point then, I was gonna say something different, but given what you said, the salaries and benefits are increasing much more than by 200,000, they're increasing by 550,000.
Yeah, and if you also look at capital reserves, it's going up right now by $250,000.
Right, that's my second question, but yeah, but the point is that the salaries and benefits in this presentation of it look like they're only going up by a little bit, and permits and fees look like they're going down by a lot.
Mhm.
When in fact, what's happening is permits and fees are staying about the same,
Yeah,
and salaries and benefits are going up by more than what it looks like.
oh, so I'm guessing and I'll confirm this, that the 1% probably came out of operating expenses. That's right.
So fine, whatever it is, my point is you should make, just from a communications point of view, in effect, adjust the FY 25 budget to on the same, the FY 20 column in this sheet is done on a different basis than the other columns because of what you just said.
Right.
So you can't really calculate the growth. I would just make that change. The other question is related to my earlier comment. Is the significant increase in capital reserves solely, is any money being put aside for things that are not being like there isn't a request right now, I assume, to do something that we're going to need 15 years from now because we have a building that's 35 years old, and at 50 years old it will stop. Like, are we putting anything aside for things that haven't been immediately said we need the money for, capital items? Is any of that 250,000 of capital reserves going towards that?
No, the big increase you're gonna see there is the select board approved a purchase of a new fire truck.
Correct.
So $100,000 being allocated there. There's
It's okay, it doesn't matter. I'm just saying.
yeah.
Anything that's on that we know we're going to need, but we don't know what it is.
There's nothing in,
An idea.
yeah, there's nothing in capital that's just unspecified. Everything's specified for a certain thing.
Okay, that's too bad, because the buildings that we have, well, maybe do we have a list of capital assets that will last forever?
We do not know.
No. Okay. Well, I think I would recommend that if we aren't going to put money aside, that we put that list together.
So what are going to do this year, John, is one of the articles on the warrant is going to be to create a reserve fund. And then every year, if there's a surplus, a percentage of that surplus will go into the reserve fund. And then it can be spent at the select board's discretion.
But only if it's
Correct, yes.
That's better.
But Eric, I will say, I'll say the fire department has capital reserve funds for a lot of facets of their building, of the emergency services building. And we
Yep.
also have a capital reserve fund for town hall as well.
Yeah, I think the town has about 2 million in capital reserves overall set aside.
And we will have the 1% infrastructure money coming in, which will be new revenue.
Those are all positive steps.
And to be fair, nothing has to actually last forever. It only has to last for 5 or 6 billion years until the sun expands and destroys the solar system.
I'll adjust my spreadsheet.
Okay.
So do we need to schedule a meeting for next week to finalize the budget now that we've?
Yeah, I mean, after tonight's meeting with the trustees, you'll have a better sense of what's gonna happen with that percentage. So
Yep.
I would have another another meeting next week to vote on the budget, but also to have a conversation with the select board wants as articles for the warning. Yes, and the Vondell Reservoir as well. I sent a list of things that I want to have on the articles. But the select board may have things you guys want to include as well. So we can have that meeting as well.
Should we talk about, since all 5 of us are here?
I mean, I just guess I'd want to make sure everyone's okay with budget talks. If anyone has any conversation on budget they want to go through. So I just, so I can confirm for everyone. So the only real major change we made was $13,000 taken out of the assistant town clerk budget. Small increases for Pentangle and chamber rent. We're keeping fireworks allocated currently.
Reluctantly.
Luckily, no change to
Last year.
last year. Okay, no change to health insurance. And so right now, the town showing a $13,000 surplus. Assuming tonight the town agrees to increase the endowment fund, you're probably talking about $30,000 increase, give or take. Is there a feeling the board wants to do with that surplus, lower the tax rate, allocate the money somewhere else? Just so I can make the change before next week.
I would lower the tax rate.
I agree.
Anyone else?
I guess my only concern is that have we ever made a disbursement to pay down the tax rate before from this endowment?
I mean, in my 2 years here, no. 1 year, I think the first year I started, the board did allocate undesignated fund balance to lower the tax rate. But that was, I think, in 2023, but that's all I'm aware of.
But the endowment is, I mean, that's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is the endowment is a set income that we receive. And and it fluctuates every year because it's a percentage.
Yes.
So it's just a fluctuation. It's not really that we're making a different policy decision than we ever do.
Well, you are deciding to go from 3% to 5%.
Right. Yes.
This is a judgment call, and I appreciate that you're trying to bring down the tax rate any way you can. I would say that if you're talking about like a 0.5%,
Yes.
I think it's good to demonstrate that you're trying to bring down the tax rate. I would say that 0.5% off my taxes is way less effective than $15,000 or whatever it is that could go towards something we actually need to do. So I would argue against it, but again, it's a judgment call, and I appreciate one way or the other, however you do it. Thanks.
Well, we can see what tonight brings in half an hour and make a decision then.
So do we want to set a meeting date?
Yes. So the trustees have their meeting next Tuesday at 6:30. We can meet before then at 5, 4 or 5. Wednesday, potentially the room is booked for 2 different subcommittees, Village Design Review Board and the Conservation Committee. So Wednesday might be a no-go, but Monday looks free, as does Thursday. Or we meet early in the morning as well, one of those days.
Thursday, I have less flexibility, but Monday or Tuesday are fine.
Can't do Tuesday. Okay. Craig?
I was gonna say Tuesday, but
Tuesday at 4 wouldn't, 4:30, right? It doesn't work.
Would Monday work for a quorum? And ideally, I'd want everyone here, we talk about articles, you know, because that could dictate the next 2 months of our lives.
Monday works for me.
Yeah, I can do Monday.
I can,
Yep. Would Monday like 4 work?
sure.
Yes.
I don't know about this board I signed on for that was gonna meet once a month.
Well, remember when we went from 2 to 1, people were worried that we wouldn't get, we'd be too overwhelmed with
I know.
everything.
Can I ask a process question?
Oh, and Roger, could you just introduce yourself? I don't think we had you or
Sure,
John
I'm sorry.
introduce
I'm
yourself.
Roger Logan, Woodstock Village. I have a broad kind of general budget observation that I want to make. Is the next meeting going to be just totally focused on one thing, or will it be open to that kind of discussion?
I mean, when the board's talking about the budget, if they want to choose a member of the committee to speak about, then absolutely. Yeah, but I mean, you're here now if you want to.
I mean, it's more appropriate for both boards.
Okay.
So if that's okay, I'd like to just make sure that you don't have an agenda that's set in a way that we can't discuss more kind of general budget questions when you're talking about.
Yeah, I believe the budget conversation for the next meeting is more kind of just what that 5% allocation would mean. Or also if the boards want to talk about costs that are shared between both municipalities. But if you want to wait till then, you're more welcome to.
Okay, I'd like to, because I think it's more appropriate for both.
Okay.
boards.
anything else? Adjourn,
I move we adjourn.
second? Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned.